Welcome back to the Corey Walsh Podcast. Today we're going to be interviewing Tanner Kern on his journey from D-1 Offensive Lineman to completing a 100-mile virtual marathon. It's a really inspiring story, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Tanner is a really good guy, and his blogs and podcasts he now launches truly do add some bright light to a dark time we're in with the virus. So I hope you guys really enjoy this, and enjoy the episode. All right, so now we got Tanner Kern. Thank you, Tanner, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I'm a pretty big fan of what you've started. I mean, it's like it pretty much like just starting out to seem to be your mission. I feel like this whole like wave of positivity that you're doing, which honestly like now is like the perfect time to launch it, given like what's going on really. And with all the negative news surrounding like the virus and whatnot, you kind of are trying to really pave your way as this beacon of light in a dark time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the coronavirus really, it gave us a lot of time, depending on what your job is and all that. But for me, I had some extra time, so I decided, why not start the blog? Why not start the podcast and the website? And I always wanted to do it, but I thought, it was the perfect time.
Yeah, so I really found your story to be truly interesting. It's not really the way that most D1 athletes, I feel like, kind of go down this road if they have ends to their football careers. But I'll start from, like, you've said since you were young that you've always felt truly doubted. And there was a quote that you really said that I really found powerful, which was that you said, there's always someone who doubts you and your ability to succeed, but that is what you specifically love about life, if you want to, like, build upon that.
Yeah, so, just going back to my youth football career, I think I always wasn't physical enough, and that's kind of where that mentality started. And I took that into high school and into college. Just, people saying you're not physical enough to play the position and all that. And I didn't let that, I took that attitude and I carried over other things in my life, running. People always said, you're not going to be able to lose weight. When I was 340 pounds and I was done playing football. And I took that mentality that whatever people are doubting you, I took that and I used it as fuel to really improve myself.
Yeah, when you were going into the college scene as a football offensive lineman, did you feel as if even colleges kind of slighted you in some way in terms of like the offers that arose due to even though you had pretty solid numbers coming out of high school?
Yeah, I think I had about 12, 13 offers out of high school, and I don't feel necessarily I was slighted. Around the state, there were a lot of really good football players, and I don't feel slighted coming out of high school. I thought, I got a lot of recognition, and definitely don't feel slighted in that area. It was more just more what people said on the outside about my playing ability and all that, and that was starting youth football, and again I just used it as fuel to improve my game.
Yeah, the criticism that you felt early on, though, you definitely felt like it turned into a massive positive. And do you feel like without it, you wouldn't have became the player that you were going into your first few years of college?
Oh yeah, definitely. Without the criticism I've received from a lot of people my whole life, I definitely wouldn't have gotten that fuel. I wouldn't have been the player I became. And, I don't think I would have been the student I became. I don't think I would have become, starting the blog or the podcast, so it definitely helped me along the way.
Did you, feel as if like, cause I looked at your log for your first few years of college. So in 2015 is really like when you stepped on the field at the Lafayette, right?
Yeah.
And it says you got an ankle injury. How did that happen?
So I got to Lafayette 2015. I ended up going into camp and I won the starting job at center. So it was week 7 or week 8. I don't really remember, but we were playing Harvard, and the kid I was playing against, he was playing nose guard and I was playing center. He was an animal. And he was pretty physical the whole game, and I struggled blocking him. But so the ankle injury came. I was a pass set, and he tried to beat me to the edge, he got around the edge and the running back came to help, and he kind of dove, tried to cut him, and it went right into my ankle. So that took me out for 2 weeks. I missed our homecoming game against Bucknell, and then I came back against Colgate. Got injured again in the first quarter against Colgate, but we were winning at the time, so I'll take that. But I got injured there, re-sprained it, and then I missed. We had a bye week before our last game, and then we played Lehigh, and I ended up playing that whole game. And it was sore, and I couldn't really walk too well after the game, but I got through it.
And then it seemed that your career after then kind of just was plagued by injury too. What seemed to happen in the last 2 years, in 2016 and 2017?
So I started having some, concussive, post-concussive symptom problems. And I took a lot of shots between high school and college, and I just think they started catching up with me. It was hard. I'd be dizzy after practice. I'd be, dizzy, and I'd be throwing up sometimes. It was bad. Mm-hmm. And then I went in spring football. I ended up getting injured. With concussion. I missed my whole sophomore season and tried to come back the next spring, which would have been my sophomore spring going into my junior year, and just couldn't do it. And then at that time, it was time to finally hang up the pads.
How hard was the decision to walk away, or was it because with all of the concussions, and obviously today's football game is the headliner for why parents don't want their kids to play is concussions? Did you feel like it was like kind of easy once you realized like the concussion thing was just going to become a severe issue for the rest of your career?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I would say, I had doctors telling me I shouldn't be playing, but I battled that because like football, that's my first love. Mm-hmm. I'd been doing it for over 10 years at the time. And it was really hard to give it up because, it's not just the game, it's you're around your friends. I mean, that was my social outlet my whole life. It's my source of exercise, and it was really, really hard. I struggled with it for a long time because I would watch football on a Saturday or a Sunday, the next season, and I'd just be like, this is so hard to watch. I can't do this because I just missed it so bad, and I missed being out there. And so yeah, it took me a while to get over it, but now looking back on it, I know it was definitely the right call and probably the best decision I've made in my life.
Yeah, and it seems like the main reason a lot of players in the NFL these days, too, are just retiring is due to these head injuries. I mean, you look at, like, Kuechly, and then there was that linebacker from the 49ers, like, 4 or 5 years ago that retired after his first season due to just, like, worrying about concussions. Because, like, even most of the concussions in today's game are just undocumented. Like, players try to hide their symptoms, so it just seems everyone's just trying to really step ahead of this, like, plague that is concussions in football in general.
Yeah, and I think the worst part about the concussions in football is it is the undocumented ones. It's the shots you take every single day. Like as a lineman, I mean, that's the only position on the field you're guaranteed contact on every single snap and every rep of practice and all that. So, it's those little shots that just accumulate over time that really add up, and those can be just as bad as the significant documented concussion.
Mm-hmm. So right now, you're back at the high school that actually we both went to, Xavier High School, and you're the offensive line coach there now?
Yeah, so I was coaching there the past 2 seasons. I just resigned a couple weeks ago. I'm moving on. I got a job up in Massachusetts. I'm getting my master's degree, but it was a good 2 years getting to coach those kids, and it really brought my love of football back.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the job offer. But also, did you feel like watching them, did you feel like just with the experience obviously you had playing the game that you truly like brought something different to like the Xavier's program? Because I feel like not many like former players really come back to coach so early. I feel like it's more of like a late like 30s or 40s type situation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think for me, it was, I didn't like football for a couple of years. I really didn't watch much of it, whether it was college or the NFL or even high school. I followed Xavier, but so when I decided to go back and coach, it was more because I love Xavier so much and I love those kids. And, my love for football developed through watching those kids again. It was, it's kind of like I re-fell in love with the game. And I don't know if I mean, I guess it was cool to get to coach those kids because I wasn't much older than them. So I could really relate to them, and I knew what they were going through in high school and, getting ready to go to college. So, yeah, it was a great experience. I'm so happy I did it because, I love football, and it was really what got me back into it.
Do you think what made you fall to love of football was the way your career ended, or was it just one of those simple things that like you played it for so long that sooner or later like the burning drive kind of like dies out?
I think it was the way my career ended for sure, because when you do something for so long and then it's suddenly taken from you, like, you don't have any time to plan for it. It's like a sudden death, you don't have the time to adjust to knowing you're not going to play. And that's probably why I lost the love for football. And again, I've been doing it for so long, and now that I can't play it, I kind of felt, like I can't really watch football anymore because I'm not playing anymore. And I know that's a crazy thought, but it was really hard to not be able to play. And I just couldn't face it on TV, or anytime I saw it, it was just tough to watch because it reminded me of my life as a football player. And now my life's so much different because I'm not a football player. And it was a hard balance.
Yeah, no, that for sure seems like that's the case for a lot of athletes when the thing that they love most is like truly ripped away from them. Because like every athlete says that that gets to the level that you got to playing D1 any sport is just like the amount of time and effort and dedication you put in. You truly like it becomes your life and you become enveloped in it, and it's like the first love you really have. And just to have that ripped away from you has to be like the most devastating feeling you could have as an athlete.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're a Division I athlete, or even Division II and Division III. Now I don't have that experience, but I mean, it's your job. You're there. I was on a scholarship to play football, and obviously you got to get good grades and stuff to stay on team. But you're getting paid to play football.
Yeah, for sure. So we're gonna pivot to like basically what you could call your second act of your life in a way. You've just went on this mission. You've called it like from 340 to running a marathon. But you felt like the minute you stepped away from your football career, people turned on you, and like I just wanted to know like how much of that that must have just been like a complete shock to you to like just think you've made this great decision to like walk away with all the concussions and injuries, and it's bad enough you already don't feel like you're walking away from your one love, but to not have the support must have just been awful.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, first of all, football was my life, but when you reach like certain heights, I think people identify by what you're doing. So if I had some friends, I mean, some people just like me because of what I did,
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people who, let me think about how I want to phrase this. A lot of people, identified themselves through me playing football. Like a lot of people were just friends with me because I played football, or people were just in my life because I played football. And then, when that ended, I'm not a football player anymore. So it's like, I don't bring anything else to the table, for some people, and which isn't true, obviously, but that definitely happened a little bit in my life, which is, it's sad, but at the same time, if people don't like you for who you are, you don't really want them in your life,
Yeah, exactly. You hear that a lot with athletes, that like there's just a lot of people that kind of like to like ride the coattail of success, hoping that be like so they can say they were with you for day one. You see that like with every like professional athlete. There's always that inner circle type thing that seems to fall apart. So what you said that the doubts and health issues also plagued you initially in your post football life. So what carried over?
So once I got better, I would say, like once I made the decision I want to lose weight and, kind of reform myself. I think I took that mentality of people doubting me, because I would talk to people, and they'd say, you're going to have trouble losing weight. Like it's tough for football players to lose weight when they're done because you can't change your lifestyle. And which, you see it a lot of former offensive linemen in college at the NFL. I mean, they're not able to lose weight. So, and now there obviously are some, but it was a lot of people would tell me like, you couldn't lose weight, you're not gonna be able to lose weight, or you only lose this much, and I took that as fuel, and that's kind of what drove me to first off lose 100 pounds. And then after that, the last 40 that I lost was just through my running. But I'd say that first 100, it was fueled by a lot of doubt.
So what how long did it take for you to decide to do this just like sudden like intense weight drop? Was it like right after football, or did it take a few months?
Yeah, so it actually, I was injured what would have been my sophomore season, and I went up from about 315 is what I played at to 340. So I started dropping in that last like off season, probably got down to like 320. And then once I was done playing football in the spring, I just kept it going. But I had some trouble. I went up a little bit when I was officially done playing football, and I struggled with that. But then, so I'd say within a couple months after I was done, I really focused on it. And then once I got under 300 pounds, I was just like, I can do this. I saw myself having some success, and I knew I could get to my goal. And that kind of, things were still hard with football, not having football in my life, but having weight loss and, realizing that I can change my body and I can kind of transform myself definitely helped my identity.
Yeah, you had like what I thought immediately as like this Joe Thomas-esque turnaround for like your body. I mean, like, because like these offensive linemen, you're right, like a majority of them who leave the game just like they never can really find a way to position their workouts, because they're mostly linemen's workouts are based purely on strength workouts. And while that will help you bulk up, it's not going to help really necessarily help tone you down at the same time. So the cardio thing is also like extremely huge in that sense. So in a way, you really are like one of few like that actually can make this like completely drastic turnaround, which to your point is like, it's also super impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know if I'm Joe Thomas yet, but
no,
he looks pretty good. I don't know if I'm there yet, but yeah, I totally agree. And it's diet, I think, too, because when I was playing, I'd eat whatever I want. I'd go, I'd eat whatever, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between. After practice, I'd go get something. I'd go to Wawa, get sandwich at night, or get chips and drinks, whole pints of ice cream. And I was probably, like, when I look back at how much I was actually eating, I bet it was about 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. And if you keep that up when you're not playing, you're gonna gain weight. So I think that was, and then to top it off, my workouts too were all lifting oriented. So I'm putting on muscle and then fat on top of the muscle. So
yeah,
it's a different lifestyle. And when you're done playing football, you got to adjust to a totally different lifestyle than an offensive lineman in college.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry to like pivot really quick. I've always just been really curious. So like when you're an offensive lineman, like what's your regimen for eating? Like the college like dietitian tells you what to eat. So what was like your kind of like everyday meal?
I mean, I was told that as big as I could get where I could still move was what they wanted. So pretty much I didn't have many restrictions. I kind of just ate, I ate a lot of carbs, I'd say. A lot of meat, a lot of carbs, a lot of whatever I could get my hands on, really, and I ended up playing at about 315 pounds usually, because I could still move pretty well there. Anywhere from 300, 315, but there wasn't really much dietary stuff until I had to lose weight. And then when I was trying to lose weight and I was still playing, I was eating about 3,000 calories a day. Better foods, vegetables and, some health, like good grains and all that. But until that point, when I got up to 340, that it was just eat whatever and eat whatever. And if you get too big where you can't move, then we'll worry about it.
Does that diet shift based on your position on the line? Because the guards and centers have to move for depending on blocking scheme throughout the game. Like if they're gonna shift over to the left on a run that goes to the left, or because you're a center, you're kind of more still in the middle at all times.
Yeah, I think it was more like that was everyone's kind of guidelines. If you got too big, you had to lose a little bit, but. I was actually the biggest kid at Lafayette weight wise. I wasn't height wise. We had some kids who were like 6'7", 6'8" at one point. But yeah, I 330. I think the heaviest I played a game at or appeared in the game was probably about 320. So I definitely took the trophy home for heaviest offensive lineman.
It's an impressive award.
Yeah, it is. It is. Looking back on it, it's definitely one of my top achievements.
So what made you just decide to shift to this running? Because like you really just seemed like you grabbed it by the reins and you've just taken it to these extreme heights, capping off at this 100 miles like marathon that we'll talk about a little later.
So actually, it was my cousin who really got me into running. I signed up for a 5K. When I got to about 250 pounds, I signed up for a 5K because first of all, I was down at Disney World and I love Disney World. But I also wanted to try to run a race down there. So I signed up for it in the summer of 2018 and the race was in 2019. So I figured it'd be a good, event to set a goal to and try to get in shape for. I had some health issues in the summer of 2018 with my head. I was having some concussion stuff. So I couldn't work out at all until the fall. Mm-hmm. And I got out there in probably November. I could have worked out in like September, October, but I was just like, it's a 5K, like no big deal. And I got out there in November on the track. It was a Saturday morning after one of our games on a Friday night for Xavier. Mm-hmm. And I went on the track. I tried to run a lap and I didn't make it the lap. And I was like, all right, let me try again. So I tried to run another lap, gave up. All right. So I go back in, we go watch film, whatever. I come out the next week on the track. I try to run a lap again. I can't do it. So I quit. And I'm like, this is like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Mm. And I had to figure out something new. So I kind of got into, intervals and walk running. And my cousin at the time ran the marathon down there that year when we actually got down there. And he was probably the biggest inspiration in my running career. He had it really hard in his life. I had him on my podcast a few weeks ago, and he was a former drug addict and he battled addiction through running, and that's kind of how he overcame it. And so seeing what he went through in his life and seeing everything he was able to accomplish, I mean, he's training for a 100-mile race now. He's done an 100K. He's done multiple marathons. So he was definitely my biggest inspiration in running. And once I saw he could do it, I kind of wanted to keep up with him. And that created my, my love of running.
So it's kind of like your passion for football just translated into a different shape. In this case, it's just running.
Yeah. I mean, I run for a lot of reasons. One is definitely to keep my weight off. But it also, I do enjoy it. And now you don't enjoy like late in races or anything, but just going out there and running, I do enjoy that a lot. And I think like you said, it's definitely taken my passion for football and put it into something else. Cause when you're a football player, you're an athlete, and then once you lose football, I still want to be an athlete. So I got to figure out something else to do.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because I feel like that's what every athlete really just struggles with on life beyond sports. What can you shift it to? And the fact that you just found yours so quickly is like such a gift, really, because you do see these people that just seem like lost without it. They just reflect more than moving on and putting it towards something positive. And you definitely are shifting towards a positive type of message. I mean, you've started your blog, you've started your podcast, both of which just like there's like no negative message in it whatsoever. You really are just pushing this like light of positivity. So you did this 100 miles thing in 2 days. I am like jaw dropped that was even humanly possible. But
yeah.
Do you want to like walk through what that was and what it was for?
Yeah. So I was going to do a 50-mile race in May and that ended up getting canceled. So I was training hard for it and I wanted to do something still. So there's this race company out in Arizona. It's called Air Viper Running, and they were putting on a virtual 100-mile race. So you had 10 days to complete 100 miles, and some of the proceeds went to COVID-19 relief. So I decided, this would be great. Good. I get to run for a cause. I also, in 2 weeks, there's a walk for the National Alliance on Mental Illness that I usually do. And I've gotten involved in that organization. That's, it's been a big part of my life for the past 4 or 5 years now. And I also wanted to do something for them as well. So I decided to do my own personal fundraiser for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I did this all on a 1/4-mile track. So it was going to end up being 400 laps around the track. And I wanted to raise $400. I was, lucky enough to be able to raise close to $600.
Oh,
But
geez.
yeah, so I went out there and I ran 60 miles on Friday, and then I ran 40 miles Saturday, and I was out there. It was 35 hours total of elapsed time with my breaks and my sleeping and all that, and then I was on the track for 22 hours.
How do
And it
you
was
like even what do you do during that time? Like what do you even listen to? Is it like music, podcasts, or do you just like be like run in silence?
so I probably did music or podcasts for about half of it, and then the other half I just kind of was, one with the track,
Mm.
taking in all my surroundings. And because that's another reason, running for me is definitely an escape. And um being there's nothing better than being on the track and just fully being in that moment. Like I probably listened to music early. Like I listened to a lot on Friday, and then once I got to Saturday, definitely didn't listen to it as much because I had to focus on every single step I was taking. And I couldn't. It was so painful. I couldn't take my mind off it with music, so I really had to be in the moment and just think. Take the next step, one more step to really, get that 40 miles in.
It's just like insane. I can't even like I run like 4 times a week for like 6 miles, and even after I can't even like I'm in pain after like the third mile.
Yeah, I went to so the last week or this Monday actually. So I took 8 days off before I actually went back out, and I went running. So I went to the track once this week, and I uh, I was just running. I did like 4 miles. I'm like, how did I like this is crazy that I did 400 laps on here just looking back on it, but it was a mental challenge. That's one of the reasons I did it too. I obviously it's all great, fundraising for National Alliance on Mental Illness and COVID-19 relief, but in the end of the day, man, it's going to make you tougher, and that's another reason I took the challenge on.
Yeah, do you feel like this was like kind of like the culmination of your hard work put into like your one like this moment of completing this 100 miles?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some significance in that. When I was running around the track, I was thinking back to all the tough times I had, losing football and having to drop weight, and I did think of that, but culmination, yeah, it's the culmination of right now, but there's always something new and there's
Mm.
always something next. And um so yeah, I would say it was the culmination of where I started from as a 340-pound lineman who could not make it one time around a track to running 400 times around a track. But it's all there's always the next goal. So it was culmination, but definitely not done yet.
So, what really made you decide to launch this blog, the Tanner Kern blog, and the Tanner Kern podcast? You kind of have like your own brand going now. What really inspired that?
So I always wanted to do a blog podcast when I started getting better after football, because people would come up to me and say, how'd you lose 140 pounds? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? And you know I would think, in my mind, it's not that hard. It was hard, believe me, but it's not. You know the work you have to do, but a lot of people, I guess, don't realize what it takes to lose weight, or kind of get into running and all that. So I started the blog and the podcast for that reason, and also just to let people know you can do anything you want with the right mindset. I mean, when you take someone who was 340 pounds that couldn't run a lap around a track to where I am now, yeah, it just shows, man, you can do whatever you want. There's nothing special about me. It's just, it's work, and that's all. It's what it takes. And so, through the blog and podcast, I try to get inspirational content for people. The podcast has a lot of people with different backgrounds, but they all kind of, they all have an inspirational theme to them. And then the blog is just kind of my daily thoughts and what I'm feeling. And any content I can put out there to help someone get what they want in their life.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones you did was with my old track coach Stonier from Xavier. That guy just always is so positive. So like the minute I saw it, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, he is. He's the best. I love that guy. He
Yeah,
is awesome.
he's a great guy. So the last thing I really want to ask you is you had this quote by Amelia Boone where it said, "The struggle ends when the gratitude begins." And I just wanted to know, when did you feel like in your life you truly started to live by this quote?
Um, Going from football where I was 340 pounds, and then I lost football, and I was never really grateful for what I had. I wasn't. I I was still living, I was still alive, I was still able to function, but I didn't have football, and I felt like the world was over. I felt my life was over. And even when I was losing weight, and even when I got down to 240 pounds, I still didn't have that gratitude. And I would say that I really started living by that when I really buried my football identity. I still look back on my football days very fondly. I still talk about them, but I don't identify by that anymore. And when I was able to not identify by the sports jersey I was wearing, that's when I was filled with gratitude. If that makes any sense. I became grateful when I realized what I still did have in my life. Even though I didn't have football, I still had a lot of other amazing things that I had in my life. And, that's kind of when that struggle was like, that weight was lifted off my shoulders. Even though I'm not a football player anymore, I'm still a lot more things. And I was filled with gratitude. So she's amazing. I love her. She's an obstacle course racer, ultra runner, but she, that quote really has stuck with me ever since I heard it, because once I took that weight of football off my shoulders and I identified by so many different things, I was filled with gratitude.
Yeah, that for sure. That quote, that's just something that just digs at your heart, I feel like, and inspires you, just lights a torch somewhere in everyone. So what do you really got looking forward for the blog and the podcast? Anything interesting coming up this week or next week?
Yeah. So, this week on the podcast, I'm going to have Kevin Lawrence, who went to Xavier High School. He just got a CFL contract. And then the next week, I'm going to have a Why Do We Run podcast. So it's going to feature 3 interviews. There's going to be one ultra marathoner on there who's done a few 100 miles races. There's going to be a marathoner on there who's done 20 marathons. And then there's going to be someone chasing their first marathon. So that'll be pretty cool. And then, the blog's kind of just, what I'm feeling every day, what my thoughts are. If I think of something on a run that can help people, that's kind of, spur of the moment thing. But, and then other than that, I'm going to start training pretty hard for a fall marathon. And, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this COVID-19 ends so we can get back to normalcy pretty soon, but that's my plans right now. Yeah.
Does it really impact the entirety of this? Do you think a lot of things now are going to lean towards the virtual marathon direction, the 100 miles you did, or is it was that just a blur type thing where it won't be that common until this is over?
Well, definitely right now there's a lot of people switching over to virtual events and virtual marathons, and I don't think I'll do much more of that stuff. I'm just gonna try to focus on when things actually come back into play and getting a really fast marathon time. But it's good because I love racing, and even the virtual aspect of it, it's still a race, so you're still competing against a lot of people, and that's what makes it fun. But I'm ready to kind of gear my training towards something that's going to get a legit time that I can put to a Boston qualifier or something like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, we're all rooting for you, Tanner. Thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, Tanner, for coming on. That was some really good content right here. It was truly just an awesome time to interview you. And if you guys really liked what Tanner did, you can follow his podcast, the Tanner Kern Podcast. It is on Spotify. And if you want to keep up with his blog, you can just go on to www.tannerkern.com for more of his great stuff. And I'll see you guys later in the week.